We're joined now by David Weinstein. He's a former assistant U.S. attorney and is currently with the Hinshaw Law Firm. Welcome.
Hey, David. This should be a simple concept. If you served your sentence, you're a convicted felon, you served your time, you should be allowed to vote. The majority of the voters in Florida want it that way. What's the problem here? What's the holdup?
As with most laws, you'd think it would be relatively easy to abide by, enforce, and put this law in place, but the problem is the language that's used. Have you completed all of the terms of your sentence, including probation or parole? That's where the problem's going to be. What does it mean to have completed the terms of your sentence?
So that would be something that you would think you could check in with the parole officers, but it doesn't always work out that way. What kind of legal challenges might there be?
Well, if I've been sentenced, I know exactly how much time I'm supposed to serve to the minute when I get out, and then if I'm put on probation, I know how much time I'm on probation for it. The devil is in the details. What were the other terms of my conviction? Was I supposed to perform community service hours? Was there a fine I was supposed to pay? Is there restitution that's owed to the victim? Have I complied with all of those conditions? And then, is the person who's keeping track of me complying with those conditions, have they kept accurate records? Have they made sure that that gets back into the court file so that when they verify that I have completed the terms, it's a quick look, you've completed the terms, you can go out and vote. It should be relatively easy, but how good are the records that are going to support those facts?
Yeah, a lot of this sounds like it's minutia. It's just a bureaucratic details. You're talking about the restitution, you're talking about the probation periods, and it sounds like something that people, if you were against this amendment, you might look for ways to stop it from taking effect. If you're for it, you want to speed up the process. Is this lawyers that are complicating it, or is this politicians that are complicating, or both?
It's a little bit of both. And, you know, if you're a politician and you're a lawyer, you fit in both categories. But there are always going to be people who are going to pick apart the laws. That's what we do as lawyers, and we look at the words and we see what they're meant to indicate or what they're meant to say. It seems to be that the clear intent behind this was, if you've done your time, you can vote. You don't need to go before the clemency board. You don't need to go before the board that restores your rights. You've done your time. You've served your sentence. You can go back and vote. When they're crafting the law, there are people who didn't want to make it quite that easy, so that's why they included this additional language. The governor said he was going to encourage the legislature to do something. Well, what's the something they could do? If they want to help, they'll go in and they will draft a plain language law that says this is what it means to have completed your sentence, including probation or parole. And then it's very easy to double check that across every county in the state. You've got the Department of Elections. Well, they've got to check with Miami-Dade County. They've got to check with Osceola County. They've got to check with another county somewhere else in some other part of the state. And let's hope those records are all together. I don't see how it's going to delay, as one of the people said, people voting in the next election in March. You come in, if you've done your time and you've completed your sentence, it should be relatively easy, as you pointed out, to verify and make sure that you are now eligible to vote again. And
so the danger of not having firm guidelines from the legislature is that each county can then individually interpret it in different ways, right?
Exactly. It's going to come down to some clerk who's pulled the file and there's a piece of paper missing from the file. The clerk didn't check some box, they didn't stamp something, and now they're going to say, oh no, you didn't complete. You still have X number of community service hours to complete, or there was a fine that you were supposed to pay and you haven't paid the fine, or restitution was ordered, but I can't tell whether or not it was waived, if there was something that's compromised the restitution, so now we believe you haven't completed your sentence.
So this could possibly end up in the courts, and the courts would have to decide what was the intention of this constitutional amendment that the voters approved by 65%?
I think it's going to be less what was the intention of this constitutional amendment, but what do the words mean to have completed your sentence? Right. And if the record's incomplete, well then, is that going to be in favor of the person who has done their time? Because I think, as you said, the intent was, if you did your time, now we're going to give it back to you. We're not going to look at all this minutia on the side, but sometimes it's some minutia that's important, and that's what reduced the amount of time you spent or how much probation you got.
All right, the lawyers will be busy.
Yes, we will.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.